Hello, how are you doing today? Well, I hope it's another good day. Grandma wants to tell you another story. Seems how Christmas is coming up. It's a Christmas story. Now, do you guys go to Christmas pageants and see them? There's usually a Christmas pageant at church every year. Sometimes schools do them, but not so much anymore. Now, Grandma loves this book, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. It's a short book, but it's a little bit too long to read. So for you older kids, Grandma really recommends that you read this, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. But for the sake of time and to make it shorter for my recording, I'm going to read you a very condensed version of The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. This is a story about the Herdmans. That was their name. They were the worst kids in the history of the world. They lied and stole and played with matches. They were so awful you could hardly believe they were real. See all those kids, they're in one big, huge family. They're stealing things, they're knocking things over, they're hitting and punching and beating things up and making a mess. They had the reputation of being the worst kids in town. There were 6 of them: Ralph, Imogene, Leroy, Claude, Ollie, and Gladys. They were skinny and stringy-haired and dirty and all different sizes, with all different black and blue places where they had clonked each other. They fought a lot. That was a lot of kids, big family, 6 of them. They lived over a garage, and when they didn't have anything else to do, they would bang the garage door up and down and try to squish each other, or the mailman, or their crazy one-eyed cat. Everybody stayed away from them. Look at them all. See that silly cat they have up there? They have a one-eyed cat. Wonder how it ended up with just one eye. Then one day they showed up in Sunday school. They stole all the money out of the collection plate and drew mustaches on everybody in the Bible. And though nobody knows how, they took over our annual Christmas pageant. Our Christmas pageant is always the same. Kids in bathrobes and bedsheets acting out the story of Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus being born. Everybody knows the story. Everybody but the Herdmans. They had never been to Sunday school before, and they didn't know about Jesus. That didn't stop them from picking out the best parts for themselves. I'll be Mary, Imogene yelled, and Ralph, he'll be the Joseph. Everyone else was afraid to volunteer. That left 3 herdmans, Leroy, Claude, and Ollie, to be wise men, and the worst herdman of them all to be the angel of the Lord. Me, Gladys hollered. I'll be that. What is it? She didn't even know who the angel was that announced the birth of the Savior. So then somebody had to read the whole story to them about the star and the shepherds and how there was no room at the inn and how the baby Jesus slept in a manger. The herdmans were shocked. They had never heard the story before. They stuck them out in the barn, Imogene yelped, and they tied Jesus up in rags and put him in a feed box. You know, when they wrapped him in swaddling clothes and putting him in a manger. At least we put Gladys, who was the baby in the family, even though she was not a baby anymore, we put Gladys in a bureau drawer. Have you ever put a baby in a dresser drawer? We put our first baby in a dresser drawer because we didn't have a crib. Then they heard about the wise man bringing gifts of oil and frankincense. Claude said, "What good is smelly oil if we're the wise men? Let's bring pizza." Gold, frankincense, and myrrh, they didn't even hardly know what those things were. Every year, someone lent us their baby to be Jesus. Not this year. Nobody would trust a herdman with their baby. So Imogene offered to steal one from the supermarket. "There's always babies in carts there," she said. Let's forget about a baby," someone said. "We used a doll instead." She wanted to go and steal a baby for their Christmas pageant. Wouldn't be a very good thing to do, would it? Every rehearsal was an adventure. Leroy wanted to chase the mean innkeeper out of town, and Claude and Ollie wanted to run off with the baby to keep him safe. Imogene said she wouldn't name him Jesus, she would name him Bill, and she wouldn't let the wise men worship him. "Get away from that baby," she barked at them. "You might have germs." So Imogene was being very protective of the baby and not letting the wise man worship him and get close. When Gladys found out the angel of the Lord appeared out of nowhere in the black of night, she was sure it was out of Amazing Comics. "Shazam!" she yelled, smacking the kid next to her. Gladys liked to smack things. That's one reason why the kids were afraid of her, because she was always hitting people. Mary, our Mary, was loud and bossy. The wise men were sneaky, and the angel of the Lord came from outer space. This was going to be the worst Christmas pageant ever. Not going to be their usual Christmas pageant, huh? There they are. Some people wanted to cancel the whole thing. The minister said, "I don't think anyone will come to see it." But they were all wrong. Everybody came just to see what the herdmans would do. When the curtain opened, Ralph and Imogene stood in the wings, frozen as if they weren't sure what to do. They weren't pushing or hitting or being typical herdmans. See them there over in the wings, kind of afraid to come in? The chorus waited and hummed and hummed and waited like an old refrigerator. See, they had been singing before Joseph and Mary arrived, and then they hummed, waiting for Joseph and Mary to come in. When they finally came in, Imogene had slung the baby Jesus doll over her shoulder. Then she thumped him on his back twice, hard. There was a gasp. It didn't seem right to burp the baby Jesus. But that was the whole point of Jesus. He was a real person, and he started out as a real baby. She was acting like he was a real baby. Isn't that what Mary would really do with her baby? His parents were real too, as real as Imogene with her veil all crooked and Ralph with his hair sticking out as if they had slept in their clothes out in the barn, just like in the real story. Then came Gladys from behind the shepherds, shoving them out of the way and stepping on everyone's feet. "Hey," she yelled, "unto you a child is born. He's in the barn." She made it sound like it was the best news in the world. There's Imogene. No, excuse me, there's Gladys yelling, There's Imogene dressed up like Mary in the manger or the barn. Right behind Gladys came the wise men, but they didn't have the usual frankincense and gold and oil or myrrh. They didn't have a pizza. Instead, Leroy was carrying something big and heavy. It was a ham from the herdman's food basket. The church gave them one every year. The herdmans had never before given anything away except clonks on the head. So you had to be impressed. The herdmans were giving the baby Jesus their Christmas ham. You think they were touched by the story that they had never heard before. Then the wise men were supposed to leave and go home, but instead they just sat down. Actually, it seemed like the right thing to do. After all, they had come a long way. And we couldn't expect them to just hand over the ham and leave. It seemed natural, too, to burp a baby who might be fussy or tired, and for someone to tell people where the baby was, so they wouldn't have to wander all over the place. Somehow, every wrong thing the herdmans did seemed right and natural. And then, as everyone sang Silent Night, Imogene started to cry. In the candlelight, her face was all shiny with tears. Awful old Imogene, in her crookedy veil, crying as if Christmas had just come over her all at once. You think she was touched by the Savior of the world being born? That's what we celebrate for Christmas. When everyone left the church that night, it was cold and clear, with crunchy snow underfoot and bright, bright stars in the sky. Everyone said there was something different this time, something special. And though nobody could say exactly what that something was, everyone agreed it was the best Christmas pageant ever. And that's what makes it so special when people recognize and realize that Christmas is all about celebrating the birth of the Savior. And he is what makes Christmas special. And I hope you will all remember that that is why we have Christmas. And remember what Jesus has done for us. And that we should do our best to be kind and be like him. Remember, Grandma loves you. Bye.